And we are live. What's going on YouTube Live? It's your boy Billy Rowe. Today is Wednesday. I would like to welcome you to the first row. And if it is Wednesday, you should know what that means. It's time for a Wednesday word. That's Wednesday word. Jumping straight into it. Tonight's topic is money management. As always, I like to say what I mean about my topics. First off, the name of this topic was going to be called Hold Your Breath, but I'm trying to stay consistent to saying what I want to talk about in the title of the topic. So what do I mean by money management? A lot of us put ourselves in situations, present company included. What's going on, Mark Anthony? Present company included, where we have to hold our breaths financially. We live a paycheck to paycheck lifestyle. Really, like I said, holding our breath, hoping that an emergency doesn't come up, hoping that certain bills have a little more leeway or have a little bit more time to pay certain bills because of the fact that we are overextending ourselves financially. So money management, what I am truly talking about is how we manage our money, the resources that we have coming in. And what really I also wanted to share, kind of what got me thinking about this particular topic, was that YOLO mentality. I just seen like a meme like earlier today that was on YOLO, but I was actually thinking about YOLO before this, the you only live once mentality. So because you only live once, you might as well spend it all while you're here. Yeah, that's great, but I'm finding that when you have that type of mentality, you typically operate in a debt-heavy environment, meaning that you'll charge up a bunch of credit cards. Why? Because you're only going to live once. You might as well spend not only the money you make, but you might as well also spend the money that you don't have, because you don't intend to be here forever, so you may not pay it all back. But also certain things you'll see is sometimes you'll see people are cash heavy. And I don't mean cash heavy in the sense of they have an abundance of cash, but all they carry is cash, which can be limiting. If you have proper debt management and you have the ability to do things responsibly with debt management, you can actually use debt to your advantage. Use a credit card, charge up all your bills on it, use the money that you didn't spend on those bills to collect an interest or collect revenue, put your money to work, and then pay off that credit card before you actually are charged any interest on it. So there's strategies out there, but we're not going to talk so much about the strategies. Really, I want to talk about how the lack of money management, how it can lead us to a life where we're short on resources, where we have issues that we have to deal with, whether those are health issues, whether those may become criminal issues, because when you find somebody lacks the resources to get not even always what they need, sometimes the things that they want or have a deep desire to acquire, they might lead to less savory ways to acquiring those things. So tonight I got 3 tools for the first row that I want to share with you when it comes to money management. And these are really, to me, rudimentary, fundamental tools when it comes to money management that I think that if you're not implementing currently today, you could start implementing them after this Wednesday word with just very few notes. So jumping straight into it, the very first tool that I came up with when it comes to money management is create a budget. Now, I added something to this because create a budget is so simple, right? Just simply create a budget. But I put create a budget with you in mind, not just simply creating a budget, because I've had a budget for decades. I use this Excel spreadsheet. I put in all my bills and it tells me what I need to pay, on what days I need to pay it, how much it's going to be, so on and so forth, and how much my check is that's going to be allocated to those bills. Now, the problem is for many, many, many years, I didn't think about myself within my budget. So there's a very cliche saying called pay yourself first. Pay yourself. If you're a religious person, how they pay tithes. There's a 10% tithe that you give to the church. If you're going to give 10% to the church, I recommend you also give 10% to yourself. If you can afford to give yourself more, great. But if you can't, let's just start with 10%. Now, the reason I say 10% is because regardless of what you may think about the money that you have today, the money that you have today, if you were to take 10% out of it, you would still figure out a way to make ends meet. The issue is that we don't take the 10% out of it to pay ourselves, and then we do all these random things, this miscellaneous stuff that are not even bill centric. And then we're like, oh, but I wouldn't be able to take 10% out of my check. Trust me, I've been taking now over 10% out of my check for over a year. And there's times that I feel like I missed the money, or I may feel like I'm broke. But the reality, what's going on, cousin Brian? The reality for me is that though I may feel like I am something, I know in the back of my head that this money is being saved and set to the side for bigger and better and greater things. So the first tool, being create a budget with you in mind, really brings the focus on you. In order to achieve really any goal, you're going to need to know, any financial goal, you're going to need to know two key things. You're going to need to know what you have coming in and what you have going out. If you don't have a budget, you're not going to know those things. You might have a good sense, oh yeah, I got to pay this bill's due on this date, and you may be able to keep up with them. But when things become stressful, when times become tight, you may begin to lose track of certain things and not meet all of your financial obligations, including, with you in mind, paying yourself. That's the strangest thing to me, is that what I found over the years for myself was, when it came to saving money, if bills came up or if I overextended myself because I'm buying, and now I'm short, the first person I take from is myself and say, okay, well, I won't save $200 this month. I won't save $100 this check. I'll just go ahead and pay these bills. And that's a good discipline to have, is to obviously pay your bills. However, if you really make yourself in your budget the priority, what happens is you make sure that you're putting yourself in a place where that money that you've set to the side to pay yourself is not an option. It's not something that you're looking to tap into. That money you can be setting to the side for a certain amount to cover for emergencies. Once you get to that certain amount, then you have something as a safety net to hold, to say, okay, this can handle a $1,000 emergency. In the event of an emergency, I can take at least $1,000 and know that I'll have it cash without having to call somebody, without having to ask somebody, without having to borrow from somebody, without having to rob Peter to pay Paul, without having to do any of that. I have a $1,000 buffer. Your buffer may need to be higher or lower depending on your situation, but I have a $1,000 buffer that's going to take care of that emergency. Now, when I'm paying myself, I can start asking myself things like, okay, well, what are the bigger things I want to save for? Do I want to save to buy a house? Do I want to save to buy a car? Hey, what's going on, Bob? Do I want to save to go on a fancy trip? Whatever it may be, you can start asking yourself what you want to pay yourself for next, because now you have a safety net. So the very first tool, being create a budget with you in mind, is really a sense of taking the priority off the bills. Yes, again, our bills need to be paid, but putting you as the priority. Why? Because none of us, I can say this with absolute certainty, none of us go to work with the desire of, I just want to pay bills and live from check to check to check to check. So because none of us live in that particular world, really the reason we're going to work is to benefit us. And if all we're doing is taking everything that's coming in and sending it right back out, there at some point, yeah, there's an electricity benefit, there's shelter benefit, there may be a transportation benefit, a couple of niceties, maybe some cable or some TVs or video games, nice books, whatever. There may be some perks to that, but life is so much more meaningful than just going to work to pay for those smaller things. So that's the very first tool. Pay yourself first, create a budget so that you know what's coming in and you know what's going out, but make sure that what is coming in hits you first. So that way you can start building a safety net for yourself and start building for bigger and greater things. Tool number 2. Whew, that was a lot for tool number 1. Tool number 2 is prioritize your wants, not your necessities. And this kind of blends with tool number 1 about creating that budget with you in mind. But the reason I say prioritize your wants, which seems completely reckless, because obviously we all want many things in life, and some of these things cost more money than others. But what I have found is, again, if we prioritize what we want in the sense of the things that we want. So if I have 10 things that I want and I prioritize those 10 things on what do I want first? Let's say the first thing is really simple. I want to buy a brand new book, which is going to be $10, $20, maybe actually $30, $40, depending on the book. But I want to buy a brand new book, and I prioritize that book. Then the next thing is okay, I want to buy a bicycle. And then the next thing is, okay, I want to buy a computer. As I start checking these things off, because I'm prioritizing them, I'm not, oh, well, I got a computer, but I need the book that tells me how to use the computer. So now I got a computer that I can't use because I don't have all the information in order to use it the way I wanted to use it. So if the book that I needed was Photoshop, a Photoshop book on Photoshop for Dummies, whatever it may be, if that's what I'm really buying the computer for, then I probably should buy the book first and start the education process of, hey, I know I don't have this computer yet, and I may not be able to get hands-on training or hands-on practice, but I have the ability to start getting the information. Then I could start saving for the bike. If I don't have a car, the bike is going to be essential transportation for acquiring additional resources if I need to get a job. Then the third thing being the computer. Now I got the computer. Now I got seven other things that I want to acquire, but those were not the highest priority. What happens is because, especially when we first make money, even as kids and even into adulthood, as we make more money, we just start this kid in a candy shop mentality. Oh, well, now I wanted those 10 things. So I got it. You got 10 things, but you can't even spend time the way you want to spend time with all 10 of those things at one time. So prioritize your wants. And the reason that is so important is not just because you can't spend time with those 10 things all at once. Your wants actually drive your necessities. When you want something bad enough, you really become crystal clear on what is necessity and what is a nicety. So for instance, if I really want to be healthy, if I want to, eat healthy, exercise, and do all these things, then all of a sudden it's like I want to be healthy means that I need to eat healthier food. Well, we know that healthier food can be more expensive in the grocery store than junk food. It can be more expensive than going to the fast food place. We know that, but because I really want to be healthy and I want to be healthier, now all of a sudden eating healthy food is a necessity, because in order to achieve that health, in order to have a healthy heart, in order to have, a healthy body weight or a fat percentage of my body, in order to have those things, it's going to require me to eat the healthy food on within that diet, or the food that's healthier within my diet, which I know is going to cost more money. The other thing is the prioritization not only drives that, the prioritization will cause you to not jump into certain things that can become necessities. So for instance, let's say I currently live in a 1-bedroom apartment. This is probably a really good example. I live in a 1-bedroom apartment. When I moved to Utah, I was Airbnb'd for 4 weeks. And then I got a 1-bedroom apartment. I have lived in this 1-bedroom apartment for over a year and a half now. Now there have been things that I've wanted to, like, I want to jump in and get a house, or I want to get me a piece of property so I can live in my own spot. However, what the apartment affords me right now is the ability to travel back and see my sons, the ability to take care of other things and save certain amounts of money so that when it comes time to buy that house, I have the money to pay for the deposit, or not the deposit, I'm sorry, the down payment. So living in the apartment now affords me the ability to pay myself even more right now, even though I pay rent and it's kind of going out the door. I'm able to pay myself more now to be able to achieve a greater goal of home ownership within Utah. The other aspect of it is wanting things and prioritizing the things that I want, is the fact of travel. That is something that I recently got into in 2017, went to Mexico, felt like, I kind of like this travel thing. But I was still on the continental North America, still pretty much on the continent. So I now want to start traveling outside of the country. In order to do that, that meant, well, you can't take as many of those trips that you were taking on the continental United States. You can't go across the country. You can't go across the continent the way you probably wanted to, because you want to go off of the continent. In order to do that, it costs more money. So some of those smaller trips that you were taking now need to be put on hold. You'll be able to get back to taking them. There's still a want. There's still a desire for me. I'll be able to get back to taking them eventually. But right now, the priority is international travel. So again, prioritizing your wants, not your necessities, because we as humans figure out a way to make the ends meet on the necessities. However, our wants are what primarily drives what is necessary. So I'm in this 1-bedroom apartment right now, and that is now to keep the shelter over my head. That is the necessity that I'm under in order to save the money to buy a house, which may cost a little bit more than in the apartment. That's fine. But then that house will then become the necessity. That's why I say your wants, I want a house, is going to eventually drive the necessity of keeping that house and keeping that shelter over my head and having that asset. So that's tool number 2. I want to bring into the conversation really quick. Bob McKinley says, I was blessed at 21 to have a mentor convinced me. I got to make that bigger. I was blessed at 21 to have a mentor convinced me to start a 401k using this concept. It was mad money. I made it work, and a long time later, man, has that paid off. It starts with the paying yourself. Absolutely, Bob. And it looks like Mark Anthony agrees with you. The power of compounding. Small amounts started early and added as circumstances allow, can grow for 40 years. And man, I'm seeing that right now. And I'll probably share a little bit of that in the story that I want to share tonight. But moving on, thank you for that ad, Bob. I appreciate it. Moving on to tool number 3, third and final tool. When it comes to money management, it's really about being willing to fall behind. And what do I mean by that? Really, the complete tool is be willing to fall behind. And we'll keep being willing to fall from behind will keep you from having to play catch up later on. And in this day and age, when I was growing up, we heard it as keeping up with the Joneses. But today's day and age and today's generation, they consider it keeping up with the Kardashians. And what that does is it causes you to run at a pace that you cannot sustain. So the reason why I say be willing to fall behind is be willing to take your budget at a pace that is comfortable for you. Be willing to get the things that you need right now, like your necessities. Be willing to get those things right now in a balanced approach instead of, oh, well, I got a brand new car. And so Tom got a brand new car. So now I want to buy a brand new car to show up Tom or show him that I'm successful just like he's successful. Oh, you got a Lexus? Okay, well, I got a Benz. Look, I have never owned a luxury vehicle. I could have owned a luxury vehicle, but it's not something that I desire. And I've seen people who have luxury vehicles who have very nice vehicles and they're very comfortable when I ride in them in the passenger seat. However, it is not something that is a priority to me. And if I'm out looking for the next luxury vehicle and my heart's not really in it, I always have to ask myself, who am I trying to keep up with rather than keeping my own pace, something that is healthy for me? Because if I have a car note that's $800 a month, yeah, that's going to set back that goal of trying to buy a house. And in my mind, I understand that a house is an asset, a car is a liability because they depreciate more so over time. And it takes so many years before they begin to appreciate, whereas a house has the ability to depreciate over time. But historically and based on trends, over time, a house is typically worth more than you bought it over from the time that you purchased it at. So really, that third tool is about being willing to go at your own pace and not forcing or rushing yourself to try to keep up with the person on your right or the person on your left or the person who's in front of you. Realize that wherever you're at in your budgeting, in your money management is where you are at. And whether you want to go forward or back, that is completely up to you. Don't try to judge your distance or your success on the success of others. Your success is yours. It's intimate to you. Now, there can be things that you can do to enhance that success, but overall, it's yours. Own it and make sure that the things that you choose to commit to, whether financially, relationship-wise, or any other area of your life, make sure those are the things that you want to commit to and that you're not allowing yourself to live the life that you perceive someone else to live. So those are the 3 tools. Really quick, I want to go over them again for money management. The very first tool being create a budget with you in mind. Pay yourself first. Bob talked about that in the chat. So if you're watching live, you can see that in the chat. Number 2 is prioritize your wants, not your necessities. figure out of all these millions of things that you want, which one's most important, and start knocking these things off the list one at a time, and realize that what you want is going to drive your necessities at the end of the day. If you really want something, you will really figure out what you're willing to do without and what is and is not a necessity. Number three being, and the final tool being, be willing to fall behind. Be willing to fall behind. Well, being willing to fall behind will keep you from having to play catch up later on. Be willing to, just like I said, fall behind. Don't allow your emotions or feeling of lack. Like for me, again, that emotion of feeling like I'm broke, like, man, everybody else has money in their pocket and I don't. Yeah, because you have money accounts or money in savings. You have money in financial vehicles that maybe they have as well, or maybe they don't have. So be willing to fall behind and play at the pace that you know is healthy and is going to be results driven for yourself. So as always, with every Wednesday word, I like to share a personal story, something that kind of got me thinking about this money management aspect. And money management, honestly, is something that I want to start talking about a little bit more on the first row. Just different tools, different things that you can be doing, not necessarily like as a financial consultant, like what you could be doing with your money and how you can make $100,000 in one day, nothing like that. But it's something that I want to start talking about because I feel like money management drives a lot of other good and positive and negative issues within our lives. So don't be surprised if you see a little bit more money management content tools coming from the first row. With that, the story that I want to share with you guys tonight is really about something that got me thinking about this. So money management in this particular aspect about wants and needs. I started thinking about this probably when I was 30. I wasn't really good about thinking about it when I was younger. I was able to see the numbers when I was younger, but I wasn't doing the actions to save the money and pay myself first. But when I was 30, I remember my friend had his 30th birthday party and his wife contacted me and was like, hey, I want to do a surprise birthday party for him. I'm thinking about taking a cruise. I'm going to take him on the cruise, but it'd be nice if all of his friends were there. And immediately when she said that, I was like, I'm down. I've never been on a cruise before. At 30, I'd still never been on a cruise. And I was like, it's something, this is a really good friend. We have been friends for like 25 years. So yeah, I really want to be there for this birthday cruise. And she was like, okay, well, give me a list of all the people who you think will go or will want to go. I said, I could give you a list. I said, but here's the thing. I don't think any of them are going to go. And I said, it's no diss to them, but they are not in the position. And it's funny because now that I think about it as I'm saying it, I said, they're not in the position to financially afford to go on a cruise. And now that I'm thinking about it in hindsight, like 8 years, almost 10 years later, it's not that they weren't in the position financially to go on the cruise. It was that their mentality of money management was not at the place that it needed to be to understand that I have this want. I want to go to this birthday party that's on a cruise. It's going to cost a certain amount of money, whether that's the flight to get to the cruise to port, the cruise itself, spending money and all those other things. It's going to cost that stuff. However, there's all these other wants that I want. And there was a lack of maturity there for them to say, I'm going to put all these other wants on hold so that I could focus on this meaningful want to build this memory with somebody who is meaningful and a valuable part of my life. And so lo and behold, my friend and his wife went, and my wife at the time and we went on this cruise, and it was only the two of us. I mean, we called everybody, hey, we're getting ready to make the deposit. Okay, I need 2 more weeks. Okay, well, we're going to make the deposit now so we can secure our place. Okay, 2 more weeks. Hey, you're going to make your deposit? Oh, I can't even go. Oh, I can't even go. And everybody was just, I can't go. So it only ended up being the 4 of us on this particular cruise. Now, going back to creating a budget with you in mind, if you create a budget with you in mind, then it doesn't really matter what it is you want to do. At the end of the day, your budget just may take you a little bit. It may take a little longer to get there, but your budget set out over time when you realize, oh, well, if I don't eat any fast food this month, which may seem like, oh my God, how am I going to go without eating fast food? Well, there's this thing called food prep. and it's amazing. I did it for like 6 weeks. It was pretty cool to not have to go for fast food. And I saved a lot of money because I cooked a lot of food. But you'll plan accordingly. So if it's like, well, I'm spending $200 a month on fast food, I'm going to go 2 months without eating fast food. Now you have $400 that you can actually do something with. Because why? Fast food is really a want. I don't care how hungry you are, what situation you're in. If you don't have food that you can carry with you at some point, that is a lack of execution of planning on your part. And sometimes that has been on my part as well. So whenever I have to break down and buy fast food, I realize that that is a want and not a necessity, especially where I live at now. I live 4 minutes away from work. So I can always go home and make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or peanut butter and crackers if I don't have any bread. So, but back to this, looking at a friend who I've been friends with for 25 years, that is like that memory, that time that we spent, I knew that that was something that I wanted. And during that year while we were saving for this trip, because I wasn't making a lot of money, I was making, I don't even remember how much I was making, but it wasn't a lot of money. It wasn't what I make today. Which is still not a lot of money. Well, I'll get to a lot of money when I don't need to make money anymore, just for the record, if you guys wonder what a lot of money is to me. But it wasn't that I was making a lot of money. It was that I decided that all the other wants, playing video games, buying a house, getting a brand new car, having brand new clothes and brand new shoes, I decided that all those wants didn't mean more to me than the memory that I would have of being able to surprise my friend on the cruise and for his 30th birthday. That was what was most important to me. And that's really what money management is about. It's about setting the priority, making the most important thing, and not allowing it to be at the mercy of the least important things or the lesser important things. It may not even be the least important things, but it might be the lesser important things. And that's, again, what money management is about. So tonight, I really wanted to just kind of jump into this topic and begin to explore it. The feeling that I have, I mean, I'm 8 years from the experience, and I still remember like being one room across from my friend and walking out, and he's walking out of his room. He's like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" Like, you don't get those things back. You don't get those opportunities back. They're kind of like a one-time opportunity in that 30th birthday moment, and either you're there or you're not. And the fact that I was there is what started to provoke me, number one, to be like, I need to make sure I'm saving a little bit more money, which led to us being able to bunker down and get a house. Like it's funny how if you never had $5,000 in your pocket, not literally because I would have it in the bank, but not if you've never had $5,000 in your pocket before, and all of a sudden you have $5,000 and you can spend it on whatever you want to spend it on. But if your true desire is, or your true want is home ownership, you'll take that $5,000 and trade it to get into a house. So that's what this was about tonight. Money management, talking about how budgeting is important, keeping yourself in mind, talking about understanding how our wants are going to drive our necessities, and then also understanding that it's not a game of, it's not like a race. You're not trying to keep up with anybody. Figure out what pace works for you, execute at that pace. And at the end of the day, when you're executing at a pace that is not comfortable in the sense of complacency, but comfortable in the sense of sustainable, then you'll have a lot less stress health-wise. You won't be tempted to jump onto the illegal side if that's something that tempts you. And you'll be in a position to actually acquire your wants in a much healthier and sustainable, faster manner. So that's what I got for you tonight. The next time that you will see me live will be Wednesday for the Wednesday Word. Next week, I'm driving back to California, spending my last week with my sons before I come back to Utah. But I look forward to seeing you guys next week on Wednesday for the Wednesday Word. And then the following week will be the last First Row Intersation. And that is because YouTube technology has changed, and I won't be able to do panel type interviews or intersations on the network until I get a solution or a workaround. So that's just is what it is. But I'm still looking forward to doing that last of the last. For now, we'll call it intersations on the First Row. So I hope you guys tune in live for the Wednesday Word next week. I hope you tune in for intersations the week following and the First Row Wednesday Word that Wednesday following that as well. Other than that, I thank you guys for tuning in. Bob, Brian, Mark, Anthony. I don't, if I missed you and you're in here and you haven't said anything, you too, thank you for tuning in live. As always, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Click like, share this video, share the content that really speaks to you on the first row. And I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you again for tuning in. Until the next time, one love, peace, and God bless.